the biggest entrepreneur platform on the planet. This is Business Rockstars.
This is Business Rockstars. I'm Mark Black. Joining us is a very special guest. We got my man Lewis Howes in the building, and we're going to talk about some cool stuff, including both of these incredible books. If you haven't had them yet, check them out. In addition, your show that's coming out. But it's a pleasure to have you on the show,
Good to see you, man. Appreciate it.
too.
Thanks for being here.
So for people that are living under a rock and somehow haven't heard about you and your amazing work, just real quick, what are you working on these days?
I'm working on expanding my mind and helping as many people possible improve their life. I think when we're not focused on how we can improve, then we feel the most unfulfilled, we feel insecure, we feel unsecured in our future. And so for me, I'm constantly interviewing, like you are, some of the most interesting people in the world to learn how I can improve my life, and then sharing those lessons with others through books and programs and things like that. But our new show, Inspiring Life on Facebook Watch, is the latest project.
I'm excited to dig in on that. I think it's awesome that you brought up the interviews. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's so cool that you get to interview all these people and you get to share that with the world. But really, it's almost like a selfish thing.
It's the most selfish thing.
It's the most selfish thing. Like, I get to sit down with you now and be the student and learn from you.
Yeah.
And you get to do the same thing. And it's fun because we're actually in your place where you do your podcast. But you got a wall of all the
Wall of fame, yeah.
A wall of fame of some of the most incredible people over here. I'm sure it's impossible to pick because I've done.
Everyone always asks, who's your favorite?
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I've done so many.
Yeah,
It's hard to pick.
It's really hard to pick because they're all incredible. But I would say that some that were impactful for me is Tony Robbins. When I interviewed him the first of 3 times, it's really powerful because he had an impact on my life early on. Going to one of his workshops when I was 16 with my mom, he stood over me. He came through the crowd and kind of stopped and stood next to me. And I don't remember what he said, but I remember the feeling he gave me. And I said, one day I'd love to be able to give that feeling to people through I thought originally through sports, and I played professional football. I thought through football, I wanted to create that feeling, that emotion of what's possible for people. And it just so happened to evolve into more in the space I'm in now.
Yeah. Well, Tony's somebody that I'm going to interview someday, and he's been a huge impact on my life too. And I remember being at his seminar for the first time after reading the books and listening to the audio tapes. It's a powerhouse.
Game changer.
So you've obviously achieved a lot, which we're going to touch on and get some of the lessons from that. But more importantly than the success, you know this from interviewing so many people, people resonate more with failure and with the story. So before we talk about all the lessons and kind of the strategies of how you've built multi-million-dollar businesses, New York Times bestseller books, your show, your podcast, take us back to wherever you want to start in your story, which is incredible and inspirational. So you can go back as early as you want, but I think that'll be huge for the audience to kind of learn about Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, for me growing up, I grew up in a small town, Delaware, Ohio. Shout out to my Ohio family. And was just very insecure as a kid. I really didn't have many friends because it was really challenging for me to read and write, to comprehend any schoolwork. And all through middle school, elementary school, and high school, I cheated on probably 90% of my quizzes, tests, homework.
The ironic thing is, I feel like a lot of successful people learn to delegate. That's what I call it.
Yeah,
delegate,
not cheating, yes. By being I had amazing vision my whole life. And I think it's played well into sports and also into business and where I'm at right now. And unfortunately, the vision that I had then was I was so good at like hiding my eyes and seeing out of the corner of my eyes. We had Scantron tests back then. I don't know if you remember that. So it was just A, B, C, D. And I just got really good at sitting at the right places and having the right vision. So I never
recognizing
got caught.
patterns.
Recognizing
patterns. Look at
patterns.
that Scantron once. Remember.
Make sure I didn't copy it exactly. No, but in all seriousness, I struggled. My grades were always in the bottom 4 of our class. And so I was in the special needs classes. And in elementary school, my mom would actually come in to support and tutor in those classes because she knew I needed extra help. Now, it's not really cool to have your mom come into school and like be in class with you, right? So for me, it was even more of an insecure thing just because I got picked on a lot. I didn't really have many friends. And I think that was the most challenging for me. I was the youngest of 4 in my family, of my siblings. They were all these like phenom prodigies, right? In school, my brother skipped a couple grades. He was one of the top classical violinists in the country, now the #1 jazz violinist in the world. My other sisters were extremely intelligent and had tons of friends. And then it was just me, the dumb, stupid, no friend, youngest son.
Had to mix it up somewhere in there, right?
Right, exactly. And I think there were many years where I just kept asking myself, why am I here? I would ask myself, I would get in trouble a lot, go to the principal's office, and I was just like, I don't know why I'm even alive. I would say that over and over again. And I don't really talk about this that much because it was so young, and I think probably lots of kids said this, but I would say, why am I here? I don't want to be here. I don't want to be alive. I would say that as a second, third, fourth grader a lot. And I think if kids said that now, they'd probably have much more attention on what they're saying. But back then, people don't really seem to care that much. And because I didn't feel people cared, I know people cared, but because I didn't feel it, I had a lot of anger and rage built up. And over those years in elementary school, I just focused on being the best athlete I could be. I didn't have friends, so I would play games by myself in the backyard. I would play games in my room. I would get a ball and try to throw a ball against every corner and catch it with my good hand, with my bad hand. I would do a lot of different games because I was just so bored and I didn't have friends. And then I started playing basketball and going to the gym and just working out because I had all this free time. And that anger fueled with a passion to be good at something, coming together created something magical, but it was also very toxic. It made me one of the greatest athletes in my high school. For every sport that I played, I was a dominant player in the league, in the state. I was all state in every sport. It got me scholarship opportunities, but it left me so unfulfilled and so frustrated still. Every goal that I would achieve, I still wasn't happy. So I needed a bigger dream and a bigger goal to chase.
Yeah.
And nothing would fulfill the emptiness that I felt inside, the loneliness that I felt inside. And it wasn't until later in my 20s and when I hit 30 that I realized I kept repeating this pattern over and over. Like now I had friends because I was like a talented athlete, so people wanted to hang out with me. So I didn't have the challenge of having friends anymore. But I was still insecure and I was still frustrated and I was still holding on to anger from childhood, a lot of different things that had happened. And when I hit 30, I was getting more and more aggressive. When someone would critique me in business, I would defend myself. When someone would say some comment online or give me feedback, I couldn't take the feedback. I was like, well, you're this and you're that. I couldn't just receive feedback.
Yeah.
And when I would play sports still, I would get extremely defensive when someone would talk trash. On a
That's part of the game.
No stakes games, nothing, there's nothing riding on it. I would take everything so personally. And it got so bad, it got to a point where I ended up getting in a pretty bad fist fight, actually, just down the street at a pickup basketball game on the outdoor courts out there, where I wasn't able to handle my emotions and control the anger that I was feeling based on what someone was saying about me. I didn't know how to respond in a loving way. I took it so personally. And at that point, a lot of things started to shift. My friend was there and he said, I don't want to be your friend anymore if you're going to be this way. He was like, you need help. He's like, it's gotten so bad where I don't even know who you are when you get to this place.
At least you had a friend like that.
Had a friend like that. I mean, he's the one who pulled me off the guy when I was in this fight.
Instead of egging you on, filming it.
He was, he wanted to keep the peace always.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized I had a lot to lose. I got in this bad fight. And I remember looking at the guy afterwards saying, what did I just do? Like I couldn't recognize the guy's face. And I said, what did I just do? I'm 30 years old. I've got this big company now. I've got this audience now that I have a responsibility to uphold. And I could blow it all away from one bad decision. One bad decision could get me in jail, could get me hurting someone, really, really hurting someone, could, hurting myself, who knows? And that's when I decided to make a change. And I started going and seeing a lot of different experts, seeing therapists, seeing coaches, emotional intelligence workshops, like anything I could to continue to learn and develop, to learn how to let go of this stuff. Now, this is the guy who already created the School of Greatness podcast, felt like I already had the answers. right? I've been doing personal development, personal growth work for decades. So I felt like, well, this is stuff I already teach. I don't need this.
What I love, though, is that you're sharing that even with all of that, this was still going on.
Absolutely, even with it.
Yeah.
And there was things that I was masking that I wasn't willing to, share with people. That I was willing to share the good. I was willing to share all the great things that I was doing, the accomplishments, the goals, the money, all that stuff I was willing to share, but I wasn't willing to reveal who I truly was.
And that's what so many people online do. That's kind of like the cliche thing, right? People only show you the good side on social media. So how much of your business do you think really kind of transitioned in a good way once you started sharing this different side of you?
Everything changed. During this process of learning more about myself and discovering why I was getting aggressive and why I was resentful and why I was frustrated and defensive all the time, I realized that I was holding on to a lot of things from my past. And I started opening up about being sexually abused as a kid. My brother was in jail for 4 years, getting picked on and bullied a lot. Just all these things kind of built up, but I never really talked about them. And I think we can't really start to heal until we start to share. And that's why I think having a friend that you can talk to and just say, hey, how are you feeling? And have them actually open up and reveal what's in their heart is so therapeutic and so healing. You don't need to go to therapist to do that. You can just connect with a friend or a loved one or a family member and just open up and share your heart. The challenge is I never felt like I could do that. As a man growing up in America who was an athlete, who needed to prove myself constantly, to fit in, to be accepted, to have friends, to not get made fun of. I felt like I had to fit in. And I couldn't reveal those sides of myself without people making fun of me or thinking I was less than or weak or whatever it was. And I realized that that served a purpose to help me become a better athlete, to be, successful in business or whatever, to get certain results. But it did not fulfill the service to my heart of feeling loved, of feeling connected, of feeling intimate with someone, because I always had a wall up. I always had a mask on to try to project what I thought someone wanted me to be as opposed to who I really was. And again, these masks that I wore helped me get results, helped me become a great athlete, helped me achieve what I wanted, but at the cost of feeling empty in my heart. And so that's when 5 years ago, everything shifted for me when I said, no longer am I going to sacrifice my inner peace for success.
You touched on so many amazing things. Do you think that people have to wear the masks to get to that next stage in their life? Or do you think if we took them all off and we're just our true selves that we could achieve what we want?
I think they serve a purpose from time to time. I don't think they're bad. I think if it's 24/7, then it becomes toxic.
Yeah.
So we talk about the material mask. When I was broke on my sister's couch, if I didn't put on the material mask of, okay, let me focus on my finances. Let me focus on getting out of debt. Let me focus on making money. Let me focus on adding value to the world so I can get a transaction for that value. If I didn't focus on wearing that mask, I would just lay around and be a slob on the couch all day. So for me, it becomes toxic when I'm up till 4 a.m. every single night for 2 years, eating crap every single day, and only focused on making money. That's when it stops to serve me and stops to serve the people around me. So it's really just focusing on how can I be so mindful and aware of the mask that I'm wearing in that moment. And when they're hurting me and hurting other people and hurting my vision for a more purposeful life, then take it off.
I think that's really one of the insights from the book is like being aware of the masks. I want to talk about some of the different things from the book. What I think is really interesting is how much congruency and commonalities I see between our stories and our own unique ways. I felt the same way in school. I delegated as well. I was really good at recognizing the patterns on that. Played professional paintball because I didn't feel like I got anything from school. Used paintball as my outlet like you use sports as well. Became one of the best in the world, won hundreds of thousands of dollars in high school from that, but still felt empty inside because that was my only outlet.
Sure.
And that's such a tiny piece of your whole life. And then found personal development, spiritual development, and that started to fill me up. And it's crazy how it's like, and here we are, right? It's like, and my question is, would you change anything from your past?
I would love to not have to suffer in my childhood. But that was, I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the awareness. In some ways, it drove me to get to where I'm at. And I don't know if I would have experienced as much. I put myself through so much pain in sports. Like I was willing to sacrifice anything to be the best. And I wonder if I didn't have that suffering feeling inside, if I had more peace, if I would have been willing to put myself through as much pain. So I'm not sure.
Do you think the pain, I think, and science has shown this too, right? The pain is what motivates the change versus the comfort. So maybe the pain, obviously you look back
I
and
put myself through a lot of pain.
No
for
one wants to
30
be
years, you know. So I think I could have let some of that go. Yeah. But it wasn't like I was suffering all the time. But I think I wish I could have appreciated what I accomplished. I never appreciated it.
just got to get to the next thing.
Got to get to the next thing.
Yeah.
I was the most unhappy 10 minutes after I accomplished my biggest dreams.
That's like Tony Robbins says, once my company went public and $400 million went in,
Now what?
I felt so empty.
Empty. Yeah. And I think now today I'm constantly, I've got a lot of big projects that I'm working on that are coming out. And
Like the show we got to talk about.
the show. And I was watching an old clip of Oprah the other day from like 1980 something, right? And this was right before her show was about to launch, the Oprah Show.
Yeah.
I think it was called like AM Chicago or something like that before it was the Oprah Show. And she was doing an interview on TV, kind of like this. And the guy who was interviewing her says, is this going to be successful? And what if it's not? And she goes, it's going to be extremely successful. And if it's not going to define me. This is just one thing of my entire body of work of my whole life. And I've been working on this show for a year and a half, putting a lot of energy into it. And it reminded me, I was feeling a little nervous because I was like, well, what if this doesn't work out?
Yeah.
What if I put all this energy into something, my whole life into this one show, launching it, and then it doesn't get picked up or it doesn't get good reviews or people don't like it or whatever.
What I want to put a pin in right there is the fact that so many people listening and tuning in usually think, man, Lewis has got to be on it. Mm-hmm. He's got to be asking himself questions like, man, how big could this show get? Yeah. Instead of what if it fails? Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's so awesome to see for the people out there and myself, it's like, he's a human. Mm-hmm. He asks himself disempowering questions, even though he's a New York Times bestseller. I
don't really ask myself, what if it fails? I more envision what I want it to be. And I say to myself, if this doesn't work out the way I want it to be, it's all good. Because it's going to be the exact stepping stone I need to create something even bigger.
Just like everything else.
So I just focus on the benefits of what it's going to be and the lessons I learned over the last year and a half where I couldn't have paid for these lessons. The growth that I gained from the experience was so profound that if this doesn't do what I envision it to be, it's going to lead me into the next thing that will be even bigger. And that's what I'm excited about is this could be that thing or this could be the stepping stone for the next thing.
Exactly.
Either way, it's a win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How does somebody though, a lot of the times people, they struggle with coming up with that type of mindset of looking at a failure as a stepping stone. It's tough. It's easier to look at a failure as that's what we've been taught in school, right? You're a failure.
Yeah, I used to feel that way a lot. And then I realized that failure is the way,
Successful people have learned that the more I fail, eventually I'm getting closer to success. But most people are terrified of failure.
It's just, I just look at it as feedback now. It's just all feedback. It's information. Okay, this either worked or it didn't work towards achieving your vision. And if it did not work, then it's the information you need to shift and make it work the next time. And a lot of it is also, I try to take the pressure off because, timing might be on or it might be off. A lot of these things, you never know what's happening. Like I started my podcast 2-3 years before really it kind of took off. The podcast world took off and it could have died because of the timing. I luckily got good timing and I got in a few years early before everyone else did and it sustained. So it's like, you got to understand the market, you got to understand the timing of things.
A lot of factors.
But I had a vision 2 years ago that I would have one of the largest talk shows in the world.
And here it is.
And I said, okay, if I'm going to have one of the largest talk shows in the world, that inspires people, that gives people great information to help them improve their life. Where would it have to be? What's the destination? And people were saying, we should get you on a major network, on TV, we should do this and that. And none of that felt right to me. I was like, yeah, like some big show on NBC or Fox or whatever, it sounds good, but I feel like that industry is struggling. And so who has the
Social media
largest
is booming.
Who has the largest distribution network in the world right now? And this was 2 years ago, I'm thinking this. And I'm thinking Facebook, you know, they were almost at 2 billion people then. They had Instagram, which was like 500 million people. Now it's 1 billion daily active users. And I said, I want to be where the largest group of people is so that they can just put it in front of people as opposed to buying media on billboards and say, turn on the TV at 7 o'clock this time and be there.
And that's it, you missed it.
And you miss it.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to do what I did in podcasting 5.5, 6 years ago with a talk show.
Okay.
And trying to predict where I believe TV is going to be. And I believe Facebook Watch will figure it out. It might take some time, but that's why I'm taking the risk and getting in early.
I love it. I gamble on that. I think that's the inevitable direction, right?
But it's
TV's going down, social media's going up.
It's nerve-wracking, though, because it's like I'm taking a big risk. I'm taking a gamble, but I think...
You've been right in the past?
I've been right in the past, but it excites me because I'm learning something. And either way, I'm going to get incredible feedback. It's either going to work, great, okay, let's make it better. And how can we improve it? Or it's not going to work with the exact vision I had in mind. And I'm going to shift and shift until it does work.
So explain the show to us, just in a nutshell. I'm a viewer. I'm coming in to watch the show.
It's a 17 to 20 minute episode once a week. It's called Inspiring Life, live studio audience, where we tackle life's most challenging questions and do Q&A from the audience and bring in an expert to tackle that question. So we talk about grief and forgiveness. We talk about true happiness. We talk about relationships. We talk about what do you do when a family member or a friend is completely different opinion from you on political beliefs or society
You guys are tackling all the tough
money
stuff.
beliefs. How do you come together as opposed to constantly argue? We're diving in deep right away, and it's
That's
really
going to be good.
Yeah,
because that controversy and that friction is going to probably create a little virality there.
Yeah, that's the vision.
That's the point.
We'll see. But I just knew to myself, like, I wasn't going to create something trashy. There's tons of trash out there that's fun to watch or interesting or whatever that gets people's attention. And if I'm going to put my energy into something, it's got to be for something of a higher service to life, because that's where I've discovered is true fulfillment. The first part of my life was, how do I serve myself to be the best? Now that didn't work for me. It got the results, it got accomplishments, it got money, but it didn't work for my inner peace. So I want to have all the things I want to achieve with inner peace attached to it. If I don't have inner peace, then none of it matters. And inner peace comes from serving others. It comes from being of the highest level of service to humanity. And that can just start with the relationship you're in, your parents, your siblings, your extended family. It doesn't have to be the world. It can just start with, how can I impact the people around me, the people who wait on me at a restaurant, the people that I walk across the street with, whatever it may be. How can I smile and have an energy that is infectious with love?
And I love it because you've got the show coming out that helps people do that. The podcast that's been helping people do that. You got the book from the Mask that helps people do that, and School of Greatness.
That's it.
If people wanted to go and get either one of these books, and you were going to try to summarize, I read this book in a couple sentences, and I read this book in a couple sentences, so people can be like, which one's for me, if not both?
School of Greatness is the principles that I've learned from all the most inspiring people in the world, and the lessons on how you can apply all this to your life to achieve great things. However, the Mask of Masculinity is, none of this matters if you don't know how to understand yourself and why you're doing everything. If you don't understand the mask you're wearing. So pick your poison.
You got to have them both, it sounds
You
like.
gotta have them both eventually, yeah.
So I want to know, because you've obviously built, and one of my huge things is personal branding. Your wall of greatness over there is so many recognizable personal brands.
Personal branding is key.
What do you
It's
think?
everything.
What do you think are some simple steps that somebody who's starting their personal brand from the beginning would be?
I heard this great video from The Rock. I'm a big fan of The Rock.
Same.
And I saw a video of him with Jamie Foxx. And he had told this story before, but I saw his video with Jamie Foxx recently. And when The Rock got into movies, his management team was like, you need to get skinnier. You need to be like Dwayne Johnson, not The Rock. You need to act softer. You need to do all these things. And it didn't work for him. If you look at photos of him, he looks really weird, like skinny.
I remember some old school stuff.
It's weird.
Yeah.
And it wasn't working, right? He was constantly in a conflict within himself. He's like, this isn't who I am. They're trying to make me be someone else, and it's not working. So he said, you know what? If it's not going to work being someone else, I'd at least rather try to be myself and make it not work, because at least I feel good inside. And so he amped up The Rock. He got bigger and stronger. He showed his tattoos
Doubled
more.
down.
He doubled down on who he is and his uniqueness. He used his personality. He brought the flair and the fun. And now he's the highest paid actor in a year of all time. I think it came out recently. The highest paid actor in a year of all time.
Yeah, it was like $100 million.
$112 million or something. And he said, I credit it to being my uniqueness, to expressing my uniqueness, because that makes me different than all the other actors. Now, between me and you, he's not the greatest actor of all time, right? He's not like someone who's just the most riveting monologues and just like pulls at your heart and does all these incredible different scenes. But he doesn't have to be, because he's his unique self. And that's what attracts 100 million fans that he has on Instagram, whatever. So for me, personal branding is all about never trying to be what anyone else wants you to be. Never trying to fit into what someone wants you to be or what you think you should be. It's pulling out more and more of who you are. You know, it's, if you like to dance, showcase your dancing.
Yeah.
Don't try to hide that stuff. If you like to sing, showcase that in your business or whatever, your music. If you like to wakeboard, if you like to paintball, like, you should be doing paintball. If it's still a passion of yours, you should be showing people that you do paintball, because I didn't know that story about you. Maybe you're over that life, but it's like,
Still get the itch, but
you still get the itch. It's pulling out your uniqueness and sharing it with the world even more. That's what's going to help you stand out. That's what's going to help you build your business, attract the right people in your life. Everything is going to fall into place when you showcase who you uniquely are in the world, and that's your personal brand.
Amen. There's already a Tony Robbins, a Deepak Chopra, a Lewis Howes.
I'm not trying to be any of those people.
All those other people.
I'm not trying to be Tony or Oprah or anyone like that. I'm trying to be more of me, and that's the key. When we become more of ourselves, the opportunities start flooding to us.
And more people are going to resonate with that, because we don't need another Ty Lopez or another any of that.
Don't need that.
So simple, like some simple action steps, because that's, I think, the foundation of a personal brand. And then some quick little action steps maybe that you've taken that have helped you.
The key is, if someone came up to me, and I was at a conference last week, and someone came up to me, he goes, I listened to a webinar of yours on personal branding a few years ago, and one tip you gave me changed my business and my life.
What is it?
High quality headshots and photography.
I think I remember hearing something like that from a long time ago.
Yeah.
You said it was like the high quality pictures.
This is the game changer. When I got started, I don't know, 9-10 years ago.
It's such a simple thing too.
So simple. I remember being on LinkedIn was like the early days for me. Everyone had these like horrible headshots on LinkedIn. Horrible. And then I'd go to their website, and it was some headshot from 10 years prior. And I was just like, these people just don't look credible. I didn't study like the science of photography or branding at this point. I was just like, as a person, this doesn't look credible. I don't want to connect with this person because they don't have a good headshot. That's just what I thought for myself.
Yeah.
And I started really investing in photography. I flew to Iceland for 5 days just to do photography for my personal brand. I paid for a trip just for my personal brand so I could have content for a year and have my website updated. And my website has been copied, and people say they use it as a template all the time for how they want to build their website. And for me, that's like the greatest thing. I'm like, cool. It starts to get old after a while. But it's flattering when I'm like, okay, I'm doing something right, and they're using me as the example.
Like you used to copy the smarter kid in class.
Absolutely.
And now everyone's copying.
It's payback time. It's all good. And photography is key. I think right now as well, video obviously is huge. But if you don't have you on video on a consistent basis, it's hard to express your uniqueness. And that's
through written form. And most people aren't good at writing.
Yeah, but whatever is best for you. There's some guys that I follow on Instagram who their photos are average, but they're so witty that I'll read their stuff because they're a writer.
They're a writer,
They're a writer. I'm not a witty writer, right? I kind of say it how it is. So for me, high quality photography shows the lifestyle of greatness. It shows the community that I want to attract.
It's a reflection of your brand.
It's a reflection of my brand and also just my life.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key. If you're not investing in high quality photography, I do it almost every month. I'll find someone who I think is a great photographer. We'll go do a shoot for a couple hours, and I'll have content for the month.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the things that helps continue to grow the brand and grow my audience and following and get me opportunities, you know.
What I love is they're so simple.
Simple stuff.
It's like pictures, videos if you can do it as well, ideally.
And then obviously design. You know, for me, design is everything. I focus on design a lot on my website. Everything is intentional.
You got design in this room.
Design, everything has got to be intentional to create an experience. Because if you create a poor experience by someone when they look at your photos, your videos, your design, your website, you're not going to be credible in their mind. Why would they pay you top dollar for anything? For the service, the product, the event? They're not going to sign up. So if you want to build your business, you want to attract the right people in your life, the experience of your design is everything. And photography, video plays into that experience because it is visual. So you've got to visually attract someone to your business or your life. And I think if you're not doing that, you're missing out on a big opportunity.
Totally agree. It's some simple stuff, which I love, because some people will say, set up the pixels and do a webinar and do a funnel. And most people can't take that action step.
Here's the thing. I've been in this business for a long time, you know, almost 10 years and I've been to so many online marketing, internet marketing conferences and events and met the best people that do it, right? And there are some people early on that I would see doing these $1 million launches in a weekend or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people struggle now because they never got out of that space of just like
they never really built an audience that cared about them.
Affiliates and just like traffic and just headlines and doing that. They didn't build a brand.
That is so good. I'm so glad you brought that up. So many people just run ads. They don't build the personal brand. And the personal brand is like the retirement plan. If you've got that set, you can forever serve people and add value and don't have to spend money on ads.
I get so many opportunities just because of the brand, right?
Yeah.
So many other opportunities that come to me, equity in businesses, consulting, speaking, whatever it may be. If you're just running an online marketing business and you're not building a brand, but you're really good at traffic arbitrage or affiliates or things like that, and you're creating kind of cheap-looking sales pages, you can make a lot of money, but you're going to constantly hustle to do that. And you live and die by these launches. A brand is something that will continue to build over time. And I give up so much money now, quick money, for the long-term gains and the long-term opportunity. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with giving up a lot of money because I don't want it to hurt the brand. And I think so many people are focused on how do I make as much money as possible. I don't care if it hurts me because I don't have a brand. So who cares? I'll just reinvent myself next year and do it all over again.
Yeah.
And that's just not the game I'm playing.
So ending on the design, you got great design in the book, great design in the office. The show I'm expecting is going to have an amazing design on the set and everything like that. So people can go and get these books as we wrap up. Where? Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon.com,
Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, my
get
website,
these everywhere.
Lewis House, whatever.
And then the show's coming out when again?
It's coming out August 6th on Facebook Watch, called Inspiring Life with Lewis House.
Fantastic. And if anybody wants to be able to watch that or follow you, you have one good place to send them?
Yeah, just go to the page right there or my fan page on Facebook, Lewis House.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you for coming on the show, talking about the books, talking about the show, and sharing some wisdom with our audience.
Brother. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
man. This is Business Rockstars. I'm Mark Lack, and if you guys want to watch more of our shows, you can go to facebook.com/businessrockstars or businessrockstars.com.